You want to go first, Dorothy?
Sure. Uh, this is my first meeting with y'all. My name is Dorothy Van Soest, and I live in Seattle, Washington. And we don't have a branch here, so I'm not in a branch of WILP. I have been a member on the sidelines of WILP for years, but it was only a year or two ago that I was asked to be on the Women, Money, and Democracy issue committee. So I've been working on that committee. And then when Mary Bricker Jenkins, if any of you know her, stepped down from being the WILP liaison to the Poor People's Campaign, she asked if I would take on that role. So I have been doing that for, I honestly don't know how long. I can't keep track of time. So my connection with WILP is not long-term in terms of understanding how it works. I've just tried to make contributions as I can. My commitment of time, energy, and passion since the end of 2017 has been with the Poor People's Campaign. And that's what that's where I'm at. That's where I will continue to put most of my energy. So I'm glad to be here. And I don't know, George, do you want us to just go around with that and save
That's plenty. Do you have any agenda items to add?
I just want to learn what's possible and help in whatever way I can, because I have a commitment to anti-racism work.
Okay. Let's see, looking on my list here, who is next to join the call? Samantha?
Hi, everybody. I am Samantha Turner from the Triad branch in WILP, Southern USA, and I'm involved with the Immigration Committee, the Anti-Racism Committee, and I'm getting involved in the Mass Incarceration Committee, also doing what I can. I am also on the Poor People's Campaign here in Charlotte with George. We co-chair, and yes, I'm very committed. Also, do I have? I don't have any agenda items to add right now.
Good enough then. Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you, Teresa LME, Fannie Lou Hamer branch organizer. I'm convener of the Mass Incarceration Subcommittee, which meets tomorrow at noon. I'm one of the founding branches, organizers of the Black Liberation Caucus, and I think it would be helpful during this meeting, George, to remind people of the BOPA, because I think it's important that people know that the Black Liberation Caucus has made a firm commitment to the anti-racist transformation of WILP, and that has to link with what we're doing here. And I just spoke with Margot, and she's gonna hop on in a minute. So hopefully we can do like 2-minute rounds, no more than that, so we can have time. Just a proposal. I don't have anything else to add to the agenda other than the BOPA. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy.
Yes, I'm, let's see, I'm in Southern Wisconsin. This
What's
is
your
my
last
first.
name, Wendy? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Last name is Kennan.
Kennan?
Kennan, Kennan.
All righty.
I'm in Southern Wisconsin. I am not currently a member. There is a group in Madison, but they haven't been very active. mostly because of the pandemic. But when I saw the announcement, I'm on the email list for Will. And when I saw the announcement that there was going to be an anti-racism group and a mass incarceration group, that is why I jumped on basically yesterday and said, I'm interested, add me to the list. I've been doing some anti-racism work with a organization called Urban Triage in Madison. It does an enormous amount of work with the African-American community in Madison, but it also has a group that works with white folks to get them to understand white supremacy culture. And that has caused me to want to do something. And that's why I'm here.
Thanks, Wendy. I thought you were going to say that has caused me to pull out my hair. But it's glad you're here. Dee.
I am here. Hold on one second. Hi, Dee Murphy. I live in central Minnesota. Let's see, check-in branch. Well, that's interesting. I'm kind of in Netherworld branch. I've requested to join the Jane Addams virtual because of being kind of, isolated out here, so I thought. And I'm having a issue with getting information regarding the branch or getting into the meetings. I've sent out correspondence and not gotten a reply and done this on a couple of occasions. So I'm not sure what's happening there. If someone was very upset at the last meeting and perhaps doesn't want a member of the Black Liberation Caucus in the Jane Addams branch, or what the deal is there. I've just recently found out last week that there is a Minnesota branch and they're alive and well and they're meeting. I think that they're doing an independent kind of thing from what's happening with the group here. And that's kind of a concern for me as well. And perhaps I can discuss that with Teresa and with George, because if they're doing an independent thing, I've kind of come in through the Black Liberation Caucus to work with George and Teresa. And my experience with, dealing with groups in Minnesota is that it's kind of like, when we speak of racism, there's a lot of implied, kind of behaviors to where I'm supposed to take a back seat and help and be the servant. And that's just been my experience. And so I'm not into that. I'm not here to be anyone's servant. I have enough education and experience on my own. So my experience with it is just being who I am, having been a product of the Air Force, traveling a lot, studying culture, studying race all my life. I mean, you don't really have a choice when you look like me, a very, very dark skinned Black female. And also through my education with my undergrad in leadership and organizational communication and graduate studies and social responsibility and gerontology. I don't have any announcements or agenda amendments. I'm just here to follow along and do what needs to be done and is suggested. Thank you. Over.
Thanks. Did I miss anybody?
Excuse me, George, was I supposed to talk now about experience or?
Nope.
Okay.
Just want to make sure I got everyone. There's 6 of us. Yes, I did. I am going to move this piece up.
Well, George, I
Yes.
think it would be good if you did say who you are, etc. I don't think I heard that.
You didn't. Okay. Oops. I'm George Friday. I am in the Triad branch. I'm in Gastonia, North Carolina. I'm also involved with 2 other subcommittees, ending mass incarceration and immigration justice. I'll likely have some connection to the UN Decade of People of African Descent subcommittee when it gets rolling. And I have the role in the Black Liberation Caucus as one of the conveners there. So that's it for me. So I've moved the are talking about our past experiences and what might be in our collective toolkit now, and then I'm gonna share the screen so that we can look at the BOPA as we start to think about our work as a subcommittee. So I like your suggestion. Thank you for that, Teresa, of 2 minutes each, and I'll time us on that for you to speak about your past or current experience with the topic of ending racism, and in your community and or in your branch. So you don't have 2 minutes for your community and 2 minutes for your branch. You got 2 minutes total to let us know what your past experience is in the framework of what is it you're bringing to this work. What is it that you can, add to our collective resources around this work. So let's start backwards. And Dee, you go first. 2 minutes.
Hi, so I believe that I've already just covered it. I'm sorry, I was thinking that we were addressing what you have listed there, so I kind of already covered mine, so I'm ready to hear everyone else's. Thank you, over.
Okay, then, Wendy?
Okay, I haven't been active within WILF, so my limited experience is mostly personal, and it is recent. It's within the last year of realizing that I had to do something. I'm interested in helping with what you folks want to do. I am certainly not in any sense an expert, or I'm basically at this point just interested in learning more and doing whatever you folks think needs to be done. I'm a
Thanks,
pair of
Wendy.
hands.
Another pair of hands. Not a bad thing at all. We can use that. I think Margot's joined us, although it's hard. I can't see her on the screen. I can only see y'all. But if you have Margot, I see an iPhone. There it is, Margot's iPhone. Margot, let us know. Just introduce yourself quickly, your name and branch, and any roles you've got in WILF US. You're muted. I can't unmute you. Margot, can you hear me? Unmute yourself, please. Very
yeah.
good.
I'm good. And I'm just, I guess, a rank and file member.
Okay, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
We're talking about, and other folks will go, I think it's Teresa's turn. We're trying to find out people's past or current experience with the topic area, ending racism, either in your community or within your branch, so that we know collectively what we're bringing to the table. And we've heard from Dee and Wendy, and now Teresa.
Thank you, George. My aha moment was at the age of 17 in a classroom at Tuskegee when Stokely Carmichael spoke to our class and said, "I'm for Black Power. Will you join me?" And we all raised our hands in the classroom that day. That was 1966. I've continued on that journey by being active in the Black liberation movement for all these 55 years. In 1998, I formed the Southern Anti-Racism Network, which celebrated its 20th anniversary in 2019. And we're getting ready to celebrate our 25th anniversary in 2024, which happens to be the same year that the UN Decade for People of African Descent ends. So this is my lifelong commitment. Over.
All right. Samantha.
Okay, so I'll say hello. Hello. So my anti-racism experience began, obviously not from my skin color. So I was born from a family in the Bronx, and my grandparents were Holocaust survivors, and they lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with their 7 kids. And it was a very diverse area. And I grew up there, and it came natural to my mother to be very active, and she dragged me along with her, and not dragged me, but she took me to all the student protests and whatever was going on in the 70s. I was always there with her, making signs in a stroller, wherever she was, I was, and it just really was part of my blood at that point. But I've never been at the point where I am now, with the urgency I feel right now and the anxiety I'm feeling right now about the necessity to engage non-active but decent people in this struggle. It's not a fight. It's not a fight because it's not fair. So fights should be fair. This isn't a fair fight. This is a struggle. As far as experience here in Charlotte, I've worked in the community around healthcare justice for people, Black people and other people of color when with COVID, and getting people the information and the vaccines in areas that are not easily accessible. I've worked with the criminal justice here, doing a few hearings with the Reimagining America Project on criminal justice issues to bring awareness to the, it's not criminal justice, it's a criminal court system. It's the court system that's criminal. The justice system is not, there is no justice system. Around the fact that there is no criminal justice system, it's a criminal court system. Also, I've done education work here, bringing focus to the inequities and disparities of the education, the achievement gaps, and so much more, disciplinary gaps, and outcomes. The outcomes are ridiculously off for the numbers. They do not match up. When you have 60% of the students not graduating are Black, but only 20% of the students are Black, these numbers don't match up. The systems are off. It's not the people. I've worked with voting rights in the area, and I'll continue to work for voting rights until they really, it's either we win it or we lose it. So we can't have them taken away. So voting rights is something we all should be working on. They're trying to take votes away from poor people. So there's
2
no
minutes
fair
is about
vote.
up. You've got like 4 seconds.
And I've done some police reform work out with the Poor People's Campaign in Elizabeth City this summer. So I'm very involved, and
You're past time.
Okay, go.
Okay.
Trying to build a network, people.
All right then. Dorothy.
I'm probably the oldest one here. I'll be 79 next month. I grew up in a small town of 2,000, way up north in Minnesota, probably a lot further north of Duluth. An all-white small town. My awakening, I like Teresa's word for that, came when I went to college in Chicago, and Dr. King came and moved his family into slum housing to expose the poor housing conditions. And then when I did student teaching, and then got a job teaching 9th grade English in Chicago with no textbooks and no classroom, an all-Black school. And ever since the 1960s, it's been a slog all the way through, with me learning delving in first to the disparities and then finally coming around to see that the essence of the problem is whiteness and white supremacy. And I moved from education in high school to elementary school to Head Start. And then I went back to school and got a master's in social work and brought it into social work and worked on a reservation up north, Indian reservation. And I guess to sum it up throughout the whole thing, on 3 levels, individual, institutional, and systemic cultural, I have been learning and using myself as an educator and a writer to fight racism and to work with white people. I have written a couple of texts. A new edition will be coming out next month with a colleague of mine named Betty Garcia from California on moving from cultural competence to anti-oppression, which is a student guide for social work students. And we hit it real hard in there about not centering white people, but centering whiteness as the problem. So in a nutshell, what I bring is, a lot of humility. I'd like to be able to say after all these years that, hey, I got it together and now I can be an expert, but I got to tell you, every day it's a new learning, every day. And my goal is to try to help white people to see that that's what we have to do. That it's in the water that we drink, it's in the air that we breathe. It was there in utero. And for any of us who have the advantage of being white to feel that we have escaped that somehow is the
2 minutes are about
ultimate
over.
I'm done.
Very good.
That's
All
what I
right.
bring. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. Margot, you ready to give your 2 minutes on this topic? This item?
Yes, I believe, am I unmuted? I hope I
No,
did
you're
it. Yeah, I
good.
think
Go
I did
ahead.
this. Okay, yes. I think briefly, I feel at the quincentennial of 1992 had a big impact on me. And I realized that of course, I want to stress this didn't affect at all how I benefited or how I continue to benefit from white privilege. White privilege is a reality, it's real. But I think whiteness is untrue because I know that the quincentennial made me aware of indigenous culture. And I know specifically, I'm in Eastern Non-Territory. And if you ask me what is my ethnicity, I'd say Yentan Chambaunan. That means I'm a woman of European Jewish descent living in Eastern Non-Territory. And Chambaunan literally means a squirrel. It means that I'm an undocumented immigrant here because I don't have any authorization from the Nisenan people to live here. And fortunately, there's not any ICE going after me. So it's not the same as being an undocumented immigrant, but I'm saying I have less legitimacy probably than a person from Mexico, say living in Upper California. And it's humbling to realize that. And I have disabilities. So I'm not really that effective in mainstream society, but I can write. My writing, I think, is what I can do. And I'm in solidarity with the Black Liberation Caucus. And I realized that I think having those advantages is like, it's the same thing as first world privilege. You're not guilty, but you're responsible. And I think it's critical that I focus on that. And I think that racism ties in, of course, white supremacy ties in with what's happening globally, the oppression of Africa. And I just saw what happened in India to a lesser extent reflects that with COVID. And the fact that it's general, because I think racism is going around the last 5 centuries, like an epidemic of COVID, and has different variants and mutations, and Nazism was one of them. And I happen to be Jewish, but I think for a Jewish person identifies as contradiction, but of course it does, and they're often getting white privilege or off white privilege, which is really the same thing. It works the same way. So I'm not in any way minimizing the role of white privilege in my life, but it's paradoxical. That I just realized I'm in a curious place, but I feel my natural allegiance would be to the Black Liberation Caucus, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you. So it's my turn. I started doing what would be considered training or workshops or whatever around, back in college, it was called human relations, which I find annoying frankly, I find it annoying as a descriptor because it didn't centralize white supremacy. But that was in my second year of college. And then over time, that work has evolved in some ways to be what I am proud of as doing accountable, transparent, and consistent anti-racism work. And it is the rest of your life. So I think Wendy or Dorothy, one of y'all said that. So it's not like somebody can do a workshop or read a book or watch a film and, oh, the anti-oppression fairy comes and with her scepter, now it's all gone. No, white supremacy is a reality. So our work has to be consistent and accountable and transparent. It's every day. It's a practice. And a practice, if you want to be good at it, you practice every day. You're conscious of it. I don't want to lecture at y'all. So I'm going to share the screen and share the Black Liberation Caucus Basis of Political Agreement, or the BOPA. We got together in May, we meaning members of WILF US that are Black or other oppressed peoples. Most of the people in the Black Liberation Caucus are of African descent. There are also members of the Black Liberation Caucus who are Latinx or of ancestry that includes people of African descent. We make our decisions by consensus. That process is we address any questions that someone may have that will keep them from being in a consensus. We address any concerns or objections. And then by that way, we build consensus. There's a steering committee. The ideal is to have 2 representatives from each branch who are people of African descent. Some branches don't have more than 1 person that can represent them. And then we meet monthly. And these are our areas of work. You'll see on this list of areas of work that there is a parallel or overlap with many of the Advancing Human Rights Committee issues. Any comments or questions on the BOPA? Say stack or raise your hand. All righty then. Stop sharing there and go back to our agenda. So now let us together think through, how do we want to go about our work together in this subcommittee? Can we get agreement on being the anti-racism subcommittee? Is there another name we want to use? Again, say stack or raise your hand.
Stack.
Teresa.
Well, I'm really concerned that there's a growing proliferation of committees named anti-racism. I'm sorry that Joan Goddard isn't here, because she might be able to explain. There's an anti-racism group that she's a part of that also includes Eileen Kurkowski and a number of other people. And I think it's kind of a reading group, a study group. And then at the board meeting on the 28th, Darian proposed, and I think she's gonna pursue it, an ad hoc, so to speak, committee inside of the national board that would be committed to working on anti-racism. There's a kind of everything in the kitchen sink approach to the work. And I think that what happened at the Advancing Human Rights Committee that long conversation about the work is a kind of framework for how we think about doing the work, because it's really based on relationships. And institutional racism. I've always liked racial justice as a phrase. And so instead of saying anti, what you're against, I would appreciate it if we could frame this committee in terms of what we're for by saying the Racial Justice Subcommittee. That's just my proposal for the group, so it's not confused with the growing number of entities inside of WILF US that are claiming anti-racism. I would say Racial Justice Subcommittee of Advancing Human Rights would be the proposal I would make at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll come back to try to seek consensus on that proposal after hearing everyone. Dee?
Hi, I just wanted to second Teresa's statement because my best friend actually lives in the South, and I was giving a little background on Teresa's work and CERN. And the first, and you know, he's lived in Georgia all of his life, and you know, is a very, is a very dark-skinned Black man, just like me. You know, I'm not a man, but you know, he's experienced it. So the first thing out of his mouth was, I don't want to join anything that's anti anything. You got to tell me what you're for. Be, you know, pro or for something. So I just want to second Teresa's statement about not calling ourselves anti something, but maybe pro racial equity or something like that, or racial equity or racial justice is one as well. Thank you. Over.
I'm so shaking my head yes to that. Yes, I like to work for what I'm for. I work based on vision, and my vision is rarely what I'm tearing up, it's what I'm building up. And you know, you can't tear up anti-racism, you can only dismantle it. All righty, anyone else? So does anyone have a question or a concern about our being the Racial Justice Subcommittee of Advancing Human Rights?
I think it's
Dorothy?
great.
And I heard, oh, Samantha said it's great. Dorothy, I see your hand.
I'm trying to unmute myself. I like it a lot, and I just wanted to say one word about why. Justice implies system. And when I think about anti-racism, it can easily morph into it being an individual problem instead of a systemic problem. So I'm just endorsing it. I think it's a great idea.
Awesome. Okay, then. So I don't hear any questions or concerns. Anyone object? Raise your hand or say, you know, you object or you stack or something. No objections?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Or a matter for everyone to consider. When you meet some people that they have racial reservations or what have you, if you say racial justice, they'll argue with you and say, well, what's unjust, blah, blah, blah. Even though you gotta, you know, it's in front of our faces, all of us know, you still have to kind of ABC it out. I'm wondering if racial equality or racial equity might apply in a way that still is clear in the purpose of the thing, but it doesn't automatically throw up a screen of, you know, oh, you want justice for what, you know, versus saying you're looking for equality.
Okay. Forgive my being, you know, chuckling over here. I'm just trying to keep myself in a good place. I like equity. I'm not that equality and equity aren't the same. So equity is good. Teresa, what do you think?
Well, racial justice is kind of a common, well-known phrase for what we're talking about. And D, I have a tendency not to pander to backward elements in society who can't see the injustices. I think we're in a position to help to point that out, and we shouldn't back away from that mission and that pathway to be able to say, well, have you heard that there's about one person killed in extrajudicial every 28 hours? Have you heard about the many people who have been exonerated after years of being in prison? So it's easy to quantify and qualify racial justice, because that is what we're seeking. We're really seeking justice. And so that's why I'm standing by my suggestion, Dee. And since there were no objections earlier, I'd like to see us go with the racial justice phrase. I think it could be embraced in the way Dorothy talked about it. You know, when we called ourselves Southern Anti-Racism Network, we were saying we're ready for a fight. And that's what the name of our organization stands for, Fight Back. So we will fight back, and we will build, and we will heal, but we're definitely in the fight. And that's why we chose anti-racism. It is about institutional racism. And so we get to explain that to people, that it's not about individuals. So when they read our mission statement, it's very clear that it's about institutional racism.
Thank you so much, Teresa.
That Dorothy, oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
And yes, making sure we get the system in there is vital, it's essential. Can you live with that, Dee?
Wasn't really an objection. It was more of a reflection, I guess, on,
Nuance.
you know, just kind of the pulse of what's going on. I don't think it's pandering. I think if you want to open ears, sometimes you gotta kind of open yours too and kind of see where other people are coming from in order to make a point, or, you know, break through those thick heads, but, you know, make at least an inch of progress. But I'm fully supportive of what Teresa has said as far as, and everyone else, as far as including justice and the entire structure in a title.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Over.
Yes.
Consensus.
So we do have consensus there on racial justice. Now, I did say this is a proposal around our scope, that for the moment, our work as a subcommittee is, or happens, or will affect WILF US internally as an institution, and the individual branches that are part of WILF. That we're not trying to do something for the whole nation or the whole world at this point. If we have, you know, online events, they could be open to everyone. I'm not suggesting we limit that, but I want us to take steps that match our capacity and not to overwork any of us. I want to now share something on the screen that we may not be able to thoroughly discuss today, because I don't want us to have to spend more than an hour.
George, could we back up to what you just said? Because it sounds like you're saying that the Racial Justice Subcommittee is going to be focused strictly internally on WILF, and I have a concern about that. So I'm not, because I expected us to be getting encouraging branches to actually work in their community on the transformation of society that we're committed to, because while there is institutional racism inside of WILF US, what WILF US as an organization is trying to change our systems in the United States that are anti-racist, particularly as it relates to freedom and peace, And so I'm just not sure what you meant about just focusing in on wealth. Maybe you meant what I said, that
I did
the
mean
brand-
what you said. I meant that where our work will show up, where we will be helping to support work or whatnot, is within the institution, the organization of WILF, and at the branches level, so that branches are able to do whatever. And I said that may be open to everyone, but it's within WILF and the branches. So it's what you're saying. We're saying the same thing,
Okay, thank
different
you.
words. And I want to share this. I don't think we'll thoroughly be able to go through it. And I'm hoping maybe, I'm thinking about you, Dorothy, because you said you write and you did all that study stuff. Okay, this is a document on Wednesday. You were there, Teresa, I don't know if, and Sam, I think you were there. And Dee, you were definitely there when we had the discussion in the Advancing Human Rights Subcommittee about racism. It became a discussion about racism. And I said, oh, I can help you get started. Step one, this document, which I wrote in 2017, I think is step one. I think it's 2 pages. And I'm gonna try to make it as big as I can so that y'all can read it. I think that everything an organization needs to know to begin the process of dealing with oppression and racism in their institution is here. I think you could break this down into steps. I'm not going to do it, but I think if somebody took it here, they could break it down into steps. I didn't send it to y'all because I don't really want this document floating around within WILF. I don't mind it being within our subcommittee, but I don't want it to be any further than that. So I guess you've read my quote from Frederick Douglass, which was, it inspired me a lot because Samantha said it early on. It is a struggle. It is a struggle. It's for the rest of your life. If you ain't ready for that, you ain't ready. And if you ain't ready for that, get ready. Sorry to get loud.
George, could you read the quote? Because I'm not seeing too good today, and it's in
Okay.
italics. So could you
Yes.
read the Frederick Douglass quote out loud?
I will. It's from 1849. Let me give you a word on the philosophy of reform. The whole history of the progress of human liberty shows that all concession yet made to her august claims have been born of earnest struggle. The conflict has been exciting, agitating, all-absorbing, and for the time being put off all other tumults to silence. It must do this or it does nothing. If there's not a struggle, there's no progress. For those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate antagonism are men who want crops without plowing the ground. They want rain without the thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle.
And George, on the word, when you said antagonism, the word is actually agitation. And so you kind of misspoke there. But I think it's important to say that we're not antagonistic, but agitation is a key part of struggle, just like it's a key part of getting clothes clean in the washer. And so I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that Martin Luther King was a great agitator, and I really pride myself on being one. So agitation is key in order to advance struggle. And I just picked up when you said antagonism, and I know you meant to read it as it is, which is the word agitation.
Agitation,
right, George?
absolutely. That's it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Agitation. Thank you.
So I'm going to scroll through this slowly. If you're a speed reader, you might be able to read it, give you a summary, and then again, I will send this to y'all who are on the call. Not everyone, but y'all who are on the call today, right now. This talks about the fact that, Dorothy said this earlier, white supremacy is, it's I don't know if I go as far as in utero. I believe you said that, one of y'all did, but it's definitely in the air we breathe, and it's every day. You cannot escape it. You can't get away from it. So you can't be beating yourself or other people up about it because it's there. Now, if you say you want to work on it, then there's some things you got to do. And Teresa talked about the importance of the relationships. So you're trying to recreate relationships without white supremacy. And that has to do with yourself, others, and the culture. That's a lot of work. And this next one, developing skills for self-assessment, setting goals, benchmarks, and accountability. What kind of accountability does WILPF-US have around ending racism? And then developing an anti-oppression consciousness. On the recording from our last meeting, we talked about you go from awareness to consciousness to action based on that awareness and consciousness. And again, how do people go through those stages? How do we get there? And then right to begin, or one of the initial steps, I don't know if this is step one, but is where are you starting from? What kind of agreements are in place to support change? What kind of foundation is there to build on? What does that look like for your branch? What does that look like for WILPF-US? And that's all across the board. Change in all areas. I talk about your worldview, race in relationship to political and power analysis, race in relationship to privilege and self-accountability processes, race in relationship to support systems and practices. So that's pretty much it. So I think in these 2 pages is everything one would need, either as a branch or as WILPF as a whole, to begin to address racism and build racial justice. I think it's possible. So what do y'all think? Any thoughts, any comments, any reactions to my sharing that? Is it something that's useful? It may not be useful. It may just be that I'm wedded to it because I thought it was brilliant in 2017. I see Samantha's hand and Margot's hand. Samantha and then Margot.
Okay, so I really love the document, George. I think that if we not retool it, but if we take the points out of it and make some kind of project for each branch to actually work on these issues and name them and identify them for themselves, it might help them be more aware. If we could put this into an agenda for each branch type of thing, it might give them a way to learn about themselves.
Okay. That's what I was hoping, that somebody would take this and pull out the, process or steps or recommendations, and it could be useful in that way. So that's good news. Margot had her hand up, and Dee, did you put your hand up or you just drinking? All right, Margot.
I didn't have my hand up. I tried
Sorry.
to look in my control. I didn't show my hand up because I don't like having it up inadvertently, but I don't know, so maybe this is a malfunction in Zoom.
No worries about it. It's okay.
Well, George, what Dee wrote in the chat is that the issue of this just being internal, if the video is shared like it was shared before the recording, Dee is saying, I don't know enough about it, but Dee was saying that if you share the recording, then the document that you presented would also be shared. So it's something that will be out in the public domain if the recording is shared. So I think we need to be prepared for the document to be in the public domain, and I don't have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem with that either, Teresa. Someone who is watching the recording and is invested enough to like pause and read and retype and try to figure out how to get it all, God bless them. Because I sure couldn't figure out how to do it from a recording. I mean, it was on, the screen may be long enough for somebody to do that, but you'd have to be really, really committed to doing that. When you were speaking, Samantha, you reminded me of, and Teresa, you may be the only other person who's seen that assessment that we used with Anissa. It's an assessment, y'all, where you can take a written assessment and determine how ready is my organization to really be an anti-racist institution. And it is scored, I came up with it, and it parallels the, oh Lord, the continuum. So it scores based on that. So the scores are from 1 to 5, and it lets, it'll let one know how ready you might be. And it also exposes to people things they may have not have thought of as indicators of how ready they are. I don't know
Well,
if we want to.
George, I think this is getting into what I call the workshoppy thing that you do so well, which I think for a 1 hour meeting, you've added quite a bit of stuff here that's part of the workshoppy thing. And I know that Sha'an is a person that will maybe getting ready to pay to work with branches. And so that work with branches that you and I offered, Will, several months ago, about 9 months ago, and we decided that Will wasn't ready to go that deep because it is a paid job. And so Wilf would have to pay for that kind of work that you're just describing. And I think Sha'an is ready to do that. And you certainly should be paid for going this deep because I know how much we were paid by Anissa. So I just think that avoiding the workshop thing when it comes to the subcommittee would avoid a repeat of what Barbara Nielsen did, which really was quite disconcerting that she turned each racial justice conversation of advancing human rights into a major workshop where she was kind of facilitating and telling us and blah, blah, blah. So I would like to see us avoid that in this small subgroup of advancing human rights. Do you understand what I'm getting at, George?
I certainly hope so. I also understand it's 2 o'clock. So I was gonna suggest that we move our discussion of any resources that branches might be able to use to next month. But I want to confirm that the suggestion that I had, that Samantha underscored to some extent, of taking the approaches document that I shared and translating it into here are initial steps as a resource. Is that something that's okay with people?
Well, I did put
Okay.
myself on the stack for announcement. And that's what I mean about the workshoppy thing, George. When you do that, it does take up time and you can lose track of the agreed upon agenda. And I would like for us to do the announcements because
Yes,
I do
we
want to
will
let
do the
people know.
announcements. I want to make sure if we have a decision that we have a decision clear before we go to announcements and set the next meeting. Dee's hand is up. You're muted, Dee.
Am I able to share my screen for a second?
Yeah, hold on, let me fix it so that you can. Mhm. Okay. Yes.
Okay, am I sharing it or do I have
Nope,
to?
you should
I
go to
have to
share
do it?
screen.
Okay. So, this right here is a screenshot of what was up just a minute ago. And anybody viewing any kind of recording can hit function, print screen, there you go, boom, paste in another document. So you
Okay.
don't have to retype everything. And just want everyone to be aware of how when we start putting things out in public, they can, I mean, somebody that, I can take scissors and cut a photo out of George right here and put it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of just something everyone should be aware of when we're sharing these things publicly. that people don't have to retype documents. You can just copy, function, print, screen, paste. And so I just wanted to let everyone know, be aware of that. Thank you. Over.
Okay. Learning something new about technology. That doesn't happen that often for me.
No learning.
So do we have, or can we go through the consensus steps around the recommendation of taking the approach? I don't know the name of the document. It's something about approach and approach and something. And making it into steps that then could be a resource for branches. Overview and approach is the name of the document. So does anyone have a question or a concern about that? Dee, is your hand up?
No, I'm trying to lower it now. I got to get back into
Okay, I
that.
got it lowered.
I can stop screen sharing.
Well,
Oh, here we go.
George, I would appreciate it if we could move this to further discussion at the next meeting.
Okay.
Because the same caution I was expressing a moment ago, I think it applies to providing tools to branches where they don't have the kind of assistance that's needed to use the tool. And based on having watched you work, I think that you would have to help people use the tool. Otherwise, things could run awry. So I'd like for us to have a longer discussion about the use of that tool at the next meeting, because there's no need to rush into it.
Nope.
And I think of some other people who are missing, who might join us at the next meeting, should be privy to this decision making.
Sounds great. Thanks so much. So I got no problem for us to move that forward. There is no rush. Certainly been, the problem certainly existed for very long. We're not going to fix it in a few weeks.
Dorothy has her hand up. Dorothy.
I have a suggestion. I think the document is great and it would take very little work, George. Maybe just bullet points. And if somebody would want to take a look, if you could send it to us and we could take a look at it. And if somebody would want to do something like that and bring it to the next meeting, then we could look at it and say, how useful would this be to whom and how, and have that discussion. Then I don't think it would take a whole lot of work.
Okay. I will share it, but I do want it to be shared with the
Right.
6 other people who are on this call and not everybody in your branch or everybody in, because I mean, if they get it, I'm not that attached, you know, it's not a secret, but in terms of what we're doing, I'd like us to do it here and to do it in a pace that's slow and thoughtful and intentional and strategic.
And the fact, George, that we're a subcommittee of AHR, I think Joan Goddard has to be included in this process of it, because we are a subcommittee of AHR, and I think Joan would tend towards full agreement within the whole of AHR, just in my discussions with her about checking to make sure there's really agreement and so forth. So I say, slow the pace. We are in no hurry to undo 106 years of people not working for racial justice in a deliberate way. And never mind the mention of actually excluding people based on a sense of racial injustice inside of the history of will. So I'm in no hurry, Dorothy. And I think that slowing it down and respecting the person who is really the acting chair of advancing human rights is important. Just in my kind of long time of being associated with Will, I think there is a real need to acknowledge a certain protocol that exists within Will, where the president of the organization is just kind of, you know, the real person. And so all of this kind of gets to go to the national board and all of that protocol kind of stuff. And because it is such a serious issue inside of Will and such a let's everybody do this thing. We need to be as inclusive as possible on the decision that's gonna be something that would include all branches. If I understand that this is directed at all branches. I'm just a kind of organizational person. George knows me in that way. And so I know based on the organizational culture of Will, we need to take certain steps to avoid any possible conflict with certain powers inside of the leadership of the organization. So I'd like for us to avoid that as we're just getting started, George. So there's, I'm all for slowing it down, including Joan Goddard, you know, making sure that everybody is on board before we start moving towards the branches. I'm sorry to be so long, George, but this is something I think is a real serious problem with culture, that you get attacked for being doing something that's not in the bylaws and not in the this. You know what I mean, George? You do know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. I absolutely do. Thanks for that. All right, we're at announcements. Y'all, who's got announcements?
Well, I did put myself on the stack for an announcement, and I'll try to be brief. The Fannie Lou Hamer branch, which was founded officially in March of 2021, we've applied for a mini grant, and the grant amount is $1,500, and it's to support the first annual Fannie Lou Hamer Human Rights Conference, which will be on Zoom, and the date is December 11th. And George, the Triad branch, and we're expecting the Metro Atlanta branch. So the 3 new branches in the South, led by Black women, will be kind of staffing it. And we reached out to Disarm in Wars to staff the TPNW breakout, but the breakouts will be in mass incarceration, immigration justice, the treaty prohibiting nuclear weapons, death penalty, and the UN decade for people of African descent. So there'll be 5 breakouts and an opening plenary, and it's a 4-hour conference from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time, and that's December 11th. And we should be getting an answer on the grant soon, but the Fannie Lou Hamer branch is committed to it. So we will raise the money we need to raise to do what we plan to do. Hopefully we'll be supported by the mini grant from Will. So that's my announcement, George, over.
Great. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm so excited. Any other announcements?
I have a question
Yes, Wendy?
that's not directly with this group, but does anyone know when the next ending of mass incarceration committee meeting is?
Tomorrow at noon.
It's tomorrow at 12 noon, Wendy, and
Would somebody be able to send me the Zoom link for that?
George, do you have Wendy's email?
Yes.
So George, you'll be at that meeting tomorrow. So can you, I don't have Wendy's email. So can you send her the meeting ID link?
Absolutely. I'll
send it out. I sent it out earlier today.
I've got it. I'll
Yeah,
send it
okay.
after I close this meeting. I'll send it out, Wendy.
Thank you, George.
Thank
Great
you.
to have you there.
Thank you,
Oh,
George.
thank you,
All right.
Wendy. Thank you.
So last call for announcements. How about our next meeting for next month on November 7th? It's a Sunday. At the same time, if that's okay.
It's daylight savings time change.
Okay. So does that mean it'll be at,
I don't know.
okay, well, I will know then, whatever 1 o'clock is,
It'll still be 1 o'clock. We're just gonna lose an hour, you know. Well, actually spring forward, fall back. So it'll be, I can't remember, lose an hour again. But at any rate, we're gonna fall back.
It'll still
But
be 1 o'clock.
it'll still be 1 o'clock.
Very good. Okay, cool. So I think if there's an expression that Teresa said that I think is like, if all hearts and minds are at peace or something like that, then we're done with our meeting. Is that the thing you say, Teresa? Something about hearts and minds to end the meeting. You're not gonna tell me, are you? Okay. I don't have a good musical selection for us today. I was torn. So, okay, this is a short piece in case you want to save the chat and for me to be happy with. The Poor People's Campaign.
It's a
And
story.
There she is.
Wow, y'all, it didn't end the meeting?
You lost your connection. You were frozen.
I lost my Wi-Fi.
Oh,
We
But
were
it
waiting
kept
for you.
recording and you guys stayed here? I thought you would all be gone.
No,
It
we
was-
waited. We saw you were frozen, so we waited for you to come back.
You guys are great.
We love you. We love you, George. We love you.
Apparently
Yes, we
so.
do.
I'll take it. I appreciate it. I need it. I was saying that the Poor People's Campaign, we sing a lot. And one of the first songs that I heard that they did that I really, really resonated with, besides Somebody's Hurting Our People and It's Gone On Far Too Long, that's beautiful. But is this one called The Rich Man's House? Do y'all know it? Apparently it comes out of the labor movement, The Rich Man's House.
Well,
Okay,
sing it, George. I never
No.
heard it.
I'm not gonna sing it because I cannot sing, but I am gonna play it. If I can figure out where it is. Hold on, I gotta find it. There we go.
Wow.
You get to
Holy
see what a
Hannah.
mess my computer is.
Oh, we don't have the sound.
Sorry. I gotta fix this. Oh, mercy. And thank you for giving me mercy.
George is still recording. You want to stop the recording?
I do not actually. I believe that this will be seen as educational and they won't prohibit it. I guess
Well, we need to plan for a 90-minute meeting next time if we're gonna do this.
Yeah,
all right then. Mhm. Thank you for your patience. Leave if you have to. I won't be hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I went down to the rich man's house and I took back what he stole from me. Took it back. Took it back. Well, I went down to the rich man's house and I took back what he stole from me. Took it back. Took it back. Now he's under my feet, under my feet, under my feet, under my feet. Ain't gonna let the system walk all over me. Went to the governor's house. Well, I went down to the governor's house and I took back what he stole from me. Took it back. Took back my dignity. Took it back. Took back my humanity. Well, I went down to the governor's house and I took back what he stole from me. Took it back. Took back my dignity. Took it back. Took back my humanity. Now he's under my feet, under my feet, under my feet, under my feet. Ain't gonna let the system walk all over me. Went to the jailhouse. went down to the jailhouse and I took back what he stole from me. Took it back. Took back my dignity. Took it back. Took back my humanity. Well, I went down to the jailhouse and I took back what he stole from me. Took it back. Took back my dignity. Took it back. Took back my humanity. Now he's under my feet, under my feet, under my feet, under my feet. Ain't gonna let the system walk all over me. Went to the White House, well, I went down to the White House and I took back what he stole from me. Took it back. Took back my dignity. Took it back. Took back my humanity. Well, I went down to the White House and I took back what he stole from me. Took it back. Took back my dignity. Took it back. Took back my humanity. Now he's under my feet, under my feet, under my feet, under my feet. Ain't gonna let the system walk all over me. Under my feet, under my feet, under my feet, hey, under my feet, oh, under my feet, under my feet. Ain't gonna let the system walk all over me. One more time, now he is under my feet, oh, under my feet, under my feet, oh, oh, ain't gonna let the system walk all over me.
Shit. Have a great day and a great week. I'll see some of y'all tomorrow. Bye.
Okay,
Then-
bye-bye.
Thanks for
Okay.
everything.
Bye, George. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.